Coaching in Session.
Your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, MichaelRearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins here.
I think I've talked about this on the podcast to some degree, but it's always nice to have a refresher when it comes to our emotional state. When I ask you, what emotion would you like to be feeling right now? Maybe you want to be feeling happy. Then we go a step further. Well, why do you want to feel happy? Maybe because you know happiness is better than sadness. Great. Well, what are the things that will make you happy? Maybe you say more money. Maybe you will say more connection with your relationship. Maybe you will say a new career. Maybe you will say something materialistic like a new book or a new car or something along those lines. And yes, right, we can feel an endorphin rush that's going to make us feel good for a period of time, but for how long? One of the things that happens with our body is we find an equilibrium where we can call comfort. Now, in the terms of science, it's called our homeostasis. It is naturally where we reside when everything else is gone. All the endorphins, all the negative emotions, all the thoughts, we're just kind of in a vegetative state and we're just existing. Most people in the world today just exist. They just do the mundane. They don't feel emotions or they don't want to feel emotions. And it's always a pleasure when they get something nice, right? A nice emotion. And, maybe your partner, they surprise you with some flowers or a gift or something along those lines. Maybe your boss surprises you with a promotion or something like that. Maybe you get your first client when you start a business, right? These things feel good. But then how many bad things happen in our day? Maybe we don't get the promotion that we were vying for. Maybe we found out our partner was lying behind our back and maybe having a relationship. Maybe this idea of a business sounds so grandiose, but the reality is it's a lot of work. And we might not be getting customers in the door. And we might not be making money on the business and we're losing hand over fist. Well, we can look at the bad, right? But we can also learn from it. When it comes to our emotional state, as I said, most people, they want to be happy. This happens a lot with relationships. Sometimes relationships can get skewed or be skewed in the sense of, hey, you should be making me happy rather than I should be looking at my own happiness. But if we had to take a chance or we had to take a look at the different levels that we can be feeling, and we're going to just separate it into 5 categories today. Homeostasis in the middle ground. And of course, we can give different ones synonyms and we can give them different feelings. But I believe that the ones that I'm going to say today are going to give us a ballpark of exactly where you are on this scale. We can even put everything into percentages where we're going to be looking at every number, every factor is going to be about 20%. So the bottom of the chart where I don't want you to be is depression state. And depression, of course, can be different things. It could be grief, for example, if you wanted to change depression to grief. It could be below sadness. Maybe it could be anger, right? It could be down there, right? It could be down there in the nicks and the bits of 20%, right? The first ringer. Then we go into general sadness. You're sad that you didn't get the gifts that you wanted for Christmas. You're sad that your car didn't start today or something like that. This is, valid sadness, but it's not the end of the world sadness. Then we go into our homeostasis. This is where we naturally reside when everything is done with our emotions, etc., and we just kind of reside. Most of the time, we're going to be in this state of homeostasis. So when you're on the sofa and you're watching a movie for the umpteenth time, you're probably in homeostasis, right? You just feel comfortable, right? It feels good. Now, if you're thinking about something that's worrying you, you might have a lower bit of homeostasis, maybe even going to sadness, and maybe even going all the way to depression if you're just using that as a noise filter to try to drown out all the problems that you're dealing with. Now, it depends on where you are, of course. Then we go up a stage from homeostasis. So homeostasis is about 60%, sadness is about 40%. Now we're getting into the numbers that we like. Because if you get an 80% on a test, especially if you didn't study, you're going to say you did a good job. Well, maybe life can be a test, but most people don't study life. Most people don't study themselves. Most people are not proactive in their day. So, you know what they do? They just kind of haphazardly do things and they hope they have a good turnout. Well, let's say at the 80%, we call happiness. So, happiness is here. Whoa, I'm happy. Something good happened in your life. Maybe you got a new puppy. Maybe you found a job finally. Maybe you got some extra money. You found some money on the street and you're like, whoa, I found some money on the street. That could be happiness, right? But then we get into 100% joy. Now, joy can have different meanings, very similar to how depression can have many different meanings. You get to choose what joy means for you. Joy can be the ultimate form of our emotions. It could be the pinnacle of what we should be looking for. Because if you have joy, maybe you have everything. Maybe you fill your belly after a long day of work. You feel joyful. Maybe you see your kids playing and laughing and smiling, and you think that all the hard work you're doing is worth it because of those moments. That can be joy. Joy can be when you bring in a new life into the world. Maybe joy can even be if we flip the script on what depression or grief could be, where someone passes away, but they pass away and now they're at peace because maybe they were suffering toward the end of their life. So that joy right there can be a mixed feeling. It could be mixed with both. And there's two extremes, hot and cold, yin and yang. Which one should we be navigating? We've talked about this on the podcast before. Our emotions are only allowed to last about 90 seconds. And I say allow because that is what our brain or our body just naturally does. It's an allotted time of typically when our emotions come and when they go. We have a choice that we can make in our conscious mind now. Do we allow our emotions to ruminate and to stay a little bit longer? Or do we just kind of allow them to naturally come and go? Typically, humans, we love to ruminate. We love to go down memory lane. We would love to look at our scrapbooks and our pictures and our photo reel or whatever albums. And we're just looking at all of the good times and all the good moments in our life. One of the things I like to do is this is all private, but I make videos for my children when it's their birthday. So my son, he already has 3 videos. So the first birthday, he gets a video, second birthday, and then third birthday, he has videos. And he's going to get videos until he's 18, right? At 18, it's going to be his last video. Same thing for my daughter. She's going to get videos, and for any other kids I have. They're all going to get videos until they're 18. These videos are basically a precursor of what's to come, but then also a reflection of where and what they have done in their life. So they might have been on trips, they might have been to the water park or something like that, and they might have been on a journey to grow. The little one, she can't even crawl yet at the time of this recording. But before you know it, she's going to be walking. And before you know it, she's going to be talking back, telling me no to go away like my son. And I think of what types of joy is parenthood. I don't think the joys to changing diapers and dealing with a crying baby, like especially if you're busy or if you're exhausted, is going to be something where you savor. However, down the road, when everything is said and done and the chicks are out of the nest and they're flying away, the kids are gone, right? And you're there left, right, with nothing. Now, of course, you have your materialistic goods, and maybe you still have your partner, right? So maybe you still have your relationship. You can maybe start to live your life that maybe you were putting on hold if you were one of those people. Maybe you can start to build up a new hobby or to do things that you used to love. Or maybe you can just wait until they come home. And those are going to have different emotional states because if I was a person that waited and at the end of the day, if no one showed up, could I say I was happy? Could I say I was joyful? I probably could say I was sad that no one showed up today. I might even be depressed if it doesn't happen for a week at a time. But the moments they come, right, that joy is going to be there, paramount to anything else that has happened. I'm not going to think about all the times that they didn't visit me. I'm going to think about the time that they did right now, this moment. So we understand that the moment can be a powerful aspect in our emotional phase. But when we're trying to navigate, how do we level up or we improve our score or our grade? How do we do that? Because if we're at the bottom, if we're at depression, inaction is going to be almost like the medicine that most people take. The problem with that medicine is that it's a placebo, it doesn't work. So people would think that taking it easy or taking a break or waiting is going to be the best medicine. Now, I'm not going to say that time can't cure all wounds because time can. But how long are you willing to invest in allowing time to go at its pace when you can press the fast forward button and do the work to get out of it? Now, this is not to say that if you hit depression and all of a sudden you're like, hey, you know what? I'm noticing I'm depressed today. Let me start to take immediate action. Not everyone can do that. Some people can. Some people are going to get out of funks a lot sooner than people who are getting into them for the first time. Or maybe that they never did the work and they learned how to navigate through those funks. Because if you hit a depression or anger or a deep level of sadness, it is your responsibility to say, okay, how can I improve my score? So if we know that depression is going to be the bottom 20%, 0%, all the way to 20%, we have to figure out how we can get at least 1%. And if you can't get 1%, let's figure out how we can get half a percent. I really don't want to go lower than half a percent, but if you have to, do what you have to do because it just takes longer. Because we have an option to take 20 days to get out of our depression or 40 days to get out of a depression. Now, sometimes when people don't know how to navigate depression or navigate those hard moments in their life, grief, etc., and they might go at 0.05% or maybe at 0.01%. And it's not going to be ideal for the long term, right? Because it's going to be a treacherous journey. Now, this journey can be a good thing, it can be a powerful thing. It's going to be something where you can say, I went on this journey and it was so rough and it was difficult, but I was able to get to my 20%, right? Now I'm starting to feel human again. But then again, does a human who feels depressed or is in deep anger or grief, are they not human? I believe emotions are extremely human. Emotions are what separate humans from monsters or machines and things like that. One of the things that separate AI from human today is the fact that AI is all programmed. It's programmed to respond to a certain emotional state. So, for example, let's say you ask ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, I'm sad. What should I do? ChatGPT is programmed to give you a response. It's not programmed to listen to you and give you an individualized reflection of your personal life. It is all programmed to navigate your question with what someone programmed. So, this is what AI is capable of. And what is programmed can be profound. It could be something that can alter your life today. But maybe it's not perfect. Maybe what you have to do is hit the gas because they're over here saying, take it easy. Sometimes you need a kick in the butt, not a pat on the head. We look at sadness. We're going to look at 20% or 21% all the way to 40%. Sadness is a bit more easy to navigate than our deep depression state. We can move a little bit more freely. The shackles that are on our hands and on our neck and on our feet are not necessarily there when we're sad. What is sadness typically is that there's a wall, a door that's locked. There's something in the way, and I don't know how to get around it. And maybe I do know how to get around it, but I'm stuck on this other side of the wall and I'm afraid to climb. I'm afraid to walk around. I'm afraid to open the door because the door might be locked, but the door just might be closed. Sadness is there. We have a choice to make. We can wait until we are not sad anymore. We can try to do things that are happy, hang around with people that are maybe optimistic, or we can say, let's do the work. It's not going to be easy, but we do the work. Same thing with depression. We do the work. Depression might be even more difficult to take action. When I'm dealing with clients who are depressed or grieving, we have to go at a turtle's pace. And typically within the first month, I'm giving them assignments and I'm giving them things that are so simple and so easy. But for someone who can't even get out of bed and brush their teeth or eat a hot meal, sometimes asking them to read a book or asking them to go out and get some fresh air can be a daunting task in itself. Sadness is a bit more easy because we can say, hey, let's go for a walk, let's get some sun. Hey, let's make sure we eat a good meal. Let's make sure we go to bed at a respectable time, right? Sadness can be a bit more easy because a person is not so deep in their subconscious. They are allowed to think. Maybe the most dangerous, besides depression and anger and grief, can be homeostasis. I say this might be the most dangerous because it is the most comfortable. And we understand that comfort, as much as it feels good to us, it can be the death of us. What is a person who lives a life that has never been lived? What does that even mean? You have all of these days, all of these years to go out and be something or do something. But let's say you did nothing. Let's say you just played it safe. You just went to work 9 to 5. You just did what you were told. You didn't explore. You didn't live. You didn't dare greatly. But maybe you had this ambition for something great, for something more, a destiny that was yet fulfilled by yourself, but you didn't take action. That can be dangerous because now you will be thrown into the pits of despair and you will lose that to 60% so easily when you start to look at your life for everything that is not, but everything that it could be, especially if you have a pessimistic mind or if you have a fixed mindset. These things can be anchors or debilitating factors that stop you from ever reaching joy. But maybe you get glimpses of happiness. Maybe you see a dog or a cat that you love, a video. Maybe you hang out with some friends in social media or something, or you play a video game, or you get your hair done or your nails done. You go on a trip or something, or you go out to the bar and you get this sense of happiness. But just because you get a feeling of happiness, it doesn't mean that it's true happiness. What is true happiness to you? True happiness can be that you come to a clean home. Maybe true happiness can be that you come to a home at all. Some people don't have that. Especially in America, we don't realize the luxuries that we are allotted. We can be safe because of our police. We can be sheltered because of our homes and because of programs that are there. We can find work readily. We can find an abundance of food. From every corner, there's a fast food spot. And if we leverage everything correctly, we can find meals and we can find shelter. We can get all our basic needs met. But this is not to say that everyone's going to have that luck. And I use luck in quotations because when it comes to what you're able to do, is either you do or you don't. It is very simple. If you are a person that has lost everything, then you are a person that can build anything. If you are a person that has nothing, you are a person that can have everything. This is a mindset. What happens when you get into that homeostasis is that you think that the limit, the ceiling is you, or the ceiling is someone else, or it's the world, or whatever your circumstance, whatever that wall is, it becomes the Great Wall. It becomes bigger. It becomes the border wall. It becomes something that's supposed to stop you. But if you have a drive and if you have determination, it doesn't matter what's in your way. You can find a way through. Happiness is the journey. Happiness can be the goal for most people. Happiness can be a feeling where you get a positive, maybe happiness can be eating cake and sugar and doing cocaine and drinking alcohol, right? But those temporary boosts of happiness are going to give you a hangover effect. They're going to do something to your body that's not going to make you feel happy for long. Because if you eat enough cookies, you're going to gain weight. And maybe that weight that you gain is going to make you feel a certain way. Or it might make you be depicted by other people in a new light. And that stigma is not something that you want. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be a person that doesn't care about what other people think. But the reality is, as a teen, you are attracted to peer acceptance. And as an adult, if you don't do the work to get rid of that attraction to peer acceptance, it's going to be one of those debilitating things in your life that you have to work on. One of the things I recommend is personal development. As much as it could be challenging and as much as it can be difficult, it will allow you to look at happiness a lot sooner because the top of the chart, 81% to 100%, is that joy aspect. We have to get through happiness first. We have to give ourselves moments where we just feel happy, like you're just happy for no reason. And then those special days that happen in your life, you feel joy. I feel joy when I'm not just hanging around my kids. I think it's more happiness. But when I pay attention, I start to look at how my son has grown. I look at a picture from when he was barely standing with his both feet and now he's standing up tall. He's becoming a man, right? He's still a boy, but he's becoming a man. I think of how he didn't have any teeth and now he has so many teeth and how his vocabulary is growing. That's joy. There's going to be a time when I look back and I'm going to say, oh, I remember how cute and innocent you were, and now you're a rebel and you want to go and borrow my car or something like that and speed and get speeding tickets. And I can look back at the moments of I wish we can go back in time and cherish those moments where you were young and you were still a kid, not a teenager or young adult. But that can be what joy is also. The progress, the process, the journey. I understand that one day they're going to be gone. And maybe the only thing I have is my albums. Maybe the only thing I have are the 18 videos that I create for them for their birthday. And when I watch them, I'm, elated with all these positive feelings. But I understand that my joy shouldn't just only be about other people. And I think what happens is when it comes to joy, it's easy to say that we're joyful because of someone else. But can we be joyful for what we do in our life? Joyful or joy can also have synonyms, as I was saying. But I wanted to wait until the end to tell you these because gratitude can be one of those top feelings, right? Fulfillment can be one of those top feelings. So we have these aspects of what the good can be. And so I'm going to give you an exercise before we depart today is I want you to write down the top 80% things in your life. What does that mean for you? Could be joy, it could be fulfillment, it could be gratitude. And I want you to focus on those things. If you are not even close to happiness or maybe joy, and you're maybe closer to sadness and homeostasis, use those two areas as your starting point. Maybe you can say why you're sad, and maybe you can ask what is going to make you feel a bit better. Now, I'm not saying that if you're sad because you lost your cat, eating some ice cream is going to magically make everything better. It's not like putting a band aid on a gunshot wound. it doesn't work. Sometimes you have to do the work, and sometimes time is necessary for the healing process to occur. Therapy, not just talk therapy or coaching therapy or speaking to a therapist, is necessary, but it can be a tool that you can utilize, figuring out how bad is the damage. Because when the damage is bad, like dealing with those bottom two emotions, our idea of this emotional journey, you have to understand that you might not be doing it by yourself. Maybe you ask a friend or a family member or someone in the community, someone to help you. I remember my deepest, darkest points in my life. I know I'm going to have more of them, but I leaned on people. I leaned on books. I leaned on this idea that I'm not alone. When you can work together, when you can figure out what is the next step, not just for me, but what is the next step if I decide to walk with someone, that can truly change the trajectory of your mindset. So you can go from thinking in a depressed, sad state to thinking more in alignment with happiness and joy. This is not a magic pill. This is not to say that you're going to be less pessimistic in a day or in a week, maybe even a year. Optimism is a choice. Happiness is a choice. Joy is a choice. Sometimes grief and depression and things like that we fall into, but if we stay in it, it's a choice. So we have the choice and we have the ability to make some changes. I'm not saying that sometimes after you get knocked down, especially if you are bruised and battered, maybe you have some broken bones, your muscles are fatigued, you're tired, you're thirsty, right? Maybe dizzy. There's a lot of things working against you, but maybe you can stand back up. With help, I know you can stand back up. And that's the idea. We stand back up and we take another step. No matter how small, we take another step. If you feel afraid, no matter how small, you take a step. I heard a quote, and I'm going to leave you with this. It says, when you are afraid to take your next step, make the next step the loudest. And that right there is a mindset, because that step is not a tiptoe, it's pronounced. Can you decide to be pronounced in your world today and tomorrow, and this year, and this life? The choice is yours, and the season or the emotional journey that you're going to be going on, it may not be linear. It may be a yo-yo where you have ups and downs, and you're going to have good points and bad points, right? But this is what life brings. It brings an abundance of differences that we may or may not want at the time. If I get a flat tire or a chip in my windshield, I'm not saying, yay, I get to go see the people at Safelight or the people at Allstate or whatever my insurance is. I basically say this is something I deal with, but then I have to understand that I have the privilege to drive. I have the privilege to own a vehicle. While some people, they're walking or they don't have that, and they would love nothing more than to be in my circumstance. This is not to say that we need to be looking at other people's lives and saying, I wish I had theirs, or I wish I didn't have theirs, or something along those lines. This is opportunity for you to look at your life to see where you can make improvements. And just like with any test, as you know, you can study for it. You can learn the traits and the skills necessary for you to succeed. Because right now you might be at 1%. And I'm not talking about the top 1%, I'm talking about the bottom 1%. But nothing is stopping you from the top 1%. It is a journey, it is a process, and it is dependent on how you decide to focus on your emotions, your day, and the goal. You can choose a higher vibration in your life, but it is going to be a choice, and you have to decide, are you going to level up or are you going to stay where you are?